Hi everybody, welcome to the December Supper Club. Hope you've been having fun. We're on habit number 3 of Parker Palmer's Habits of the Heart. This one he calls how to hold tension in creative ways. So is there any tension in the world or in your life?
No, not at all. So we sort of started this talking about how when you really think about it, there's tension all over the place, every day. And really in 2 ways. There's tension within ourselves, there's also tension with others. And so we thought that's where we'd start with you, is just to think a little bit about how tension shows up in our life. With others, I think it has to do, we've thought a lot about this, we've actually spent some time talking about this, had some tension about this though. But it really has to do with when I'm talking with someone else, or when I perceive that someone else doesn't value what I hold most dear, doesn't value what I think is valuable, then that creates this sort of tension that you literally can feel. It's a visceral, cut with a knife kind of tension. So that's with another person.
Right. Or similarly, within yourself, sometimes you'll have some tension that's between 2 conflicting things that you value, and they're in conflict. And one of the examples that I was thinking of on the way to work here was, even this morning, I have a tension within myself between wanting to get my kids to school on time and not wanting to be a nagging parent who's constantly telling them to get in the car. And I face it all the time, and I'm always wrestling with
which one is more valuable to you
in the moment, and that may spill out into a tension with others if I were to start nagging them, and that's a whole other world. But it's a tricky thing. So Parker Palmer says some interesting stuff, and we're just going to read this piece of his paragraph from it. He says, "Our lives are filled with contradictions, from the gap between our aspirations and our behavior to observations and insights we cannot abide because they run counter to our convictions." And he says this, "If we fail to hold them creatively, these contradictions will shut us down and take us out of the action." This is a really interesting kind of way to talk about when we don't figure out how to hold these tensions in some creative ways, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we got thinking about. The alternative is we step out of the game.
Right. And the way that happens is usually one of 2 ways. We either sort of fight or flee. It's that same basic instinct, and we come up against something that makes us uncomfortable or that's difficult. We tend to either get aggressive and go on the attack. I don't know anyone who would do that. No. Or we tend to flee. We just sort of shut down and run away. And neither of those works very well.
And certainly it's clear enough that fleeing takes you out of the game, but in a way fighting does too, because you're not listening anymore, right? And that's when we got thinking about what are the different ways. If you're going to hold tension creative, what are the different things that requires? One of them is to listen to the other person, to be really clear about that. One also is that you've got to be able to sit in this and not come to some resolution. Be okay with that, at least in the short term. If you got to rush too quickly, that's kind of that attack mode sometimes, is I'm right, and let's just get on.
And we've got to just get this figured out and move on. But sometimes they're really, truly differences that need to be worked through. So you can't get resolution right away.
That's right.
Another is that you have to be open to sort of your own self-reflection. If you're able to hold tension creatively, what it makes you do is think about your own position. So instead of just projecting everything onto the other person of, you're not very smart, you don't get it, you're wrong, whatever it is, if you can do this, it makes you think back, well, why do I care so much about this? Why do I feel like you're not valuing my opinion? Why is it that I feel this way? And you learn something, hopefully, from that.
That's right. And then something else we also thought of that can be helpful is both not taking it personally yourself and not attacking the other person as a person. Keeping the issue, their character, right. There's some marriage research that we were talking about that shows that once a couple takes an issue and moves it from the issue to the person. So for example, instead of saying, it really bothers me that you leave your socks around, when you start saying, why are you so darn lazy that you always leave your socks around? Well, now you've moved to a character attack. And so keeping it on the issue is a really helpful thing if you're going to hold that tension.
Right. So those are some things that are good about being able to hold attention creatively. Why is it so hard to do? Why do we? Why is it so hard?
Because it's exhausting. That's why it's so hard.
That's true.
We got talking. We had some tension this morning, and to stay in that space,
hang in there with each other.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It takes work. It takes energy. It's like we got talking about a rubber band holds tension. Well, but you've got to hold that all the time, and there's times where you just want to say the heck with it.
Right.
I can't.
I'd like to fight or flee. Either I just attack you and blow it off, or I just want to get out of here and not deal with it. The other one of the other insight that we realized is that we can get through tensions with each other because we have a relationship that we trust. We know that in a marriage with someone, in a relationship, you've made agreements to hang in there with that other person. But if that trust is not there, it is very, very tough to figure out how do you hold intention with really the other. We talked earlier about the other. How do you hold intention with people that you're not even close to or in a relationship with, or don't have a sense of trust?
It's hard enough just in our friendships, in our marriages, and those kind of things to have that.
Right.
So, but does our faith then call us to something even larger?
Right.
Does it?
And I think that's sort of the push of Parker Palmer at this point, which is our faith calls us, or the gospel calls us, to be neighbor to the whole world, to be in relationship with even people we don't know, people that we have or don't count as close family. How in the world do we do that?
If you don't share the same worldview,
right?
And
so when there's no trust, it's tough.
The election not too long ago was
right.
an obvious example. So, yeah,
so lots to talk about. Yeah.
So have fun with it. There's a couple of questions that we thought we'd leave you with this time. What is your typical reaction when there's tension? So do you typically go on the attack, or you're the first one out the door, at least mentally? So you might think about that a little bit yourself and go around the table and share a bit about that. And then we thought it might be, if you can find one that feels safe enough to share, is what's a tension that you're experiencing right now in your own life? And sit with, what does this feel like? And perhaps then move into, what would it look like to hold that more creatively? What does that even mean? What are some options that you haven't tried yet? So
to acknowledge it, and then to figure out how, maybe what can I learn from this? Can I get past needing a resolution or taking it personally, all of that.
Yeah.
So. Okay, well, hope that's good. Have fun.
Have a great time. See you.
Thanks.